It just got worse for Ubisoft. I don't think we've ever seen a stock crash this hard from a bad game release in modern history, with their stock price now in free fall, losing over 56% value in just 1 year. And now a minor shareholder is threatening to invoke a proxy fight to remove the Guillemot family and Tencent from the company. I don't think that's a bad thing. But if you guys don't know what's happening with Ubisoft, or why really you should care, Ubisoft's been having a little bit of a hard time. They had a very lukewarm reception to Assassin's Creed Shadows, to say the least, and on top of that, they've been going on a gaslighting campaign to just kind of insult your intelligence. They have Star Wars Outlaws that is released literally coincides with the stock going into freefall. That is mind-blowing. In what recent times can you think of a game releasing that has caused such a just downward trend for a whole company for one game? But Star Wars Outlaws had a very mediocre reception. Of course, IGN gave it a 7, which is it's famous for doing so. But this was made by Massive Entertainment, the guys who made Division, who are one of my favorite games I've ever played, and still wish that there was another Division coming out that wasn't a mobile game. Audience are scratching their head wondering who this was made for. I feel like we've been asking that a lot as consumers lately, have we not? On top of that, we had Skull and Bones, which was also a massive financial flop that was a stripped-down version of a game released 11 years ago. So Ubisoft is not catching a lot of W's right now. Alongside years of development and delays on Division Heartland, it's not looking good for the French studio. But a Slovakia-based investment firm that holds less than 1% in Ubisoft released an open letter stating their dissatisfaction with the Guillemot family, including the CEO and Tencent, for the current direction of Ubisoft, and feels that it is just going in the wrong direction. And to be honest, I don't blame them. How many flops can you have until you have to realize that it is an executive level problem? But let's take a look at the stock price so you can kind of see this just train wreck that's happening in real time before our eyes. So currently Ubisoft Entertainment is valued at €12. That is a 56%, almost 57% downturn from a year ago. They have continuously crashed and recovered and then crashed and recovered, but this time, this one's pretty severe. And if you guys don't know, Star Wars Outlaws released on August 30th, and that's what started this massive downturn, where investors were not happy with the final product of that game and did not feel comfortable with the current leadership. And to be honest, we haven't really seen this too often, and I feel like investors are probably starting to wake up. But there's a really good article on TechRaptor that kind of breaks this down and talks about it, written by Joseph Allen. Activist Ubisoft investor calls for strategic and structural changes. So, a company that serves as a significant minority shareholder, so someone that holds almost 1%, but they have expressed deep dissatisfaction with Ubisoft's current direction, and I don't blame them. Sea of Thieves was horrible. Assassin's Creed Shadow does not look to be any better, and Outlaws just was absolute trash. It was not fun. And Ubisoft has been famous for their formulaic gameplay, but I feel like they haven't done any kind of invention or done anything to change their formulas for over a decade. So when you don't bring anything new to the table with your games, but yet spend an absorbent amount of money and then mouth off and call a game a quadruple A title, that feels like a pretty big disconnect. Does it not? That seems like a very big disconnect from what the audience expectations are. But in an open letter to Ubisoft's directors, which CC's the CEO, Yves Guillemot, and stakeholder Tencent, the investment company AG Investments criticized Ubisoft's current performance and strategic direction. That's a pretty big middle finger, I would say. But I don't disagree with their take. AJ Investments say Ubisoft's recent quarterly results, which saw upcoming releases Division Resurgence and Rainbow Six Mobile pushed back beyond March next year, have heightened its concerns about the management ability to deliver results to shareholders. I mean, that is a fair question. When your C-level and executives and directors cannot project manage and time cost the projects and then have continuous delays or even like secret delays when it came to Division Homeland, it's a big question of like, can you actually produce a product that the audience wants and not just have a sunk cost fallacy and just burn money? And like we've talked in other videos, I think the days of just copying a game in terms of its mechanics but not adding anything new is over. You can't just skin a game like another game and then hope it does well. Like, look at X-Defiant. I mean, X-Defiant's a really great example of let's make a worse COD, put our IP on top of it because, you know, we have all these rich characters, and it just flopped. No one enjoyed it. It didn't feel good. It didn't feel competitive. It just felt worse than FPS games from over a decade ago. Not sure how you do that. I would rather go play Blacklight Retribution than go play XDefiant. The investors set out 4 proposals to increase the value of the Ubisoft for all stakeholders. They include allowing Ubisoft to go private, selling the company, changing current management and ousting Guillemot as CEO, or starting a proxy fight via a French minority law. Because I feel like Ubisoft as a whole can make really great games. I think that their direction from the creative directors and the C-level kind of controlling those games is the problem. As for its reasoning, AJ Investors says that Ubisoft is being mismanaged and that the shareholders are currently hostages of the Guillemot family and Tencent who take advantage of them. And I don't disagree with that. Though I really do think it comes to management and it comes to the Guillemot family who have just been driving this company into the ground. But the company goes on to say that it cannot understand Ubisoft's management strategy and that the studio seems more focused on pleasing investors rather than providing an excellent experience for its fans. I don't disagree with that at all. I'm not sure who Skull and Bones was made for. I'm not sure who Star Wars Outlaws was made for because it was a bug-ridden mess who just had a very clear formula that got stale after like 3 hours. On top of that, you're a space ninja who can karate chop stormtroopers and then hide in grass and no one knows you're there. So at the end of the day, it always comes back down to gameplay. And I think that the Star Wars universe is vastly rich, but they did such a poor job making you care. AJ Investors claims that many of the studio's IPs, including Rayman, Watch Dogs, Splinter Cell, are being underutilized and that the recent releases are underwhelming. And I think that they're spot on with this. To be honest, I would love to see another Watch Dogs games that wasn't... The last one was abysmal. I just couldn't care. Again, it goes back down to they just had the same formula. They didn't do anything to add anything to it. And it just felt like a copy-paste with a little bit of new graphics. And I think Ubisoft is just stuck in the past where you just can't do that. The company does, however, say that Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown was merely okay, but that nobody talks about the game anymore. And that's probably because it's a single-player game and everyone's finished with it. Not every game needs to be a headline news for every day of the week. I think that's a weird take from the investment firm, to be honest, because it's not a live service game. It is a one and done. You know, there might be DLC, there might be updates, but in general, like, it's not going to be on the news cycles for months and months on end. But I do feel like Prince of Persia is definitely a cult classic, but doesn't have a mass appeal anymore. I don't think people really care too much about it right now. And that could change. They could really retool that game to be amazing. I would love to see a new Watch Dogs, a new Rayman, new Splinter Cell would be amazing. I don't mind doing stealth in Splinter Cell, but they're not making those. I feel like this is a very clear wake-up call from August 30th when this game released that no one is happy with what they're creating. And on top of that, they're probably in dev cycles right now for other games, and now they need to question whether or not those are going to be hitting the mark for the current audience. Because when you're designing games, it is very much a gamble, because usually it takes anywhere from 2 to 4 years to make a game. And after that, you have to hope that the mechanics and everything that you brought to the table will resonate with your audience. There's so many issues that could go wrong in game development, as you can see with Division. They retooled Division Heartland multiple times and it never hit because it wasn't a Division game. They just took a skin of Division and put it on a different game. We played that game. I hated it. I hated that game. It was utter trash. And again, it had me asking who wanted this. So I don't blame this investment firm for having an open letter and saying, you know what, we're not happy. You're taking advantage of our money and you're producing garbage. We're not going to get our money back. So why are we investing in you? This is effectively a no confidence vote. But further into the letter, AJ Investment proposes several ways in which Ubisoft could improve its performance and its standing with shareholders. They include taking the company private for a fair price, as well as laying off staff, which unfortunately, I feel like this part will happen no matter what. When you've had 2 major flops and a third one on the way, because we all know that Assassin's Creed is going to fail. Let's just be honest with ourselves. But a procedure AJ Investors rather callously refer to as optimizing staff levels. Yeah, that's a nice way of saying fuck you to those guys. But at the same time, how can you expect to keep your job when you unfortunately build a flop? That is the reality of this industry. But you cannot keep failing like this quote unquote making quadruple A games at quadruple A prices and not selling. In no world does that make sense. But other recommendations include refocusing the core IP and another call for change in management. I feel like unless they get the Guillemot family out, nothing is going to change. Nothing. And I honestly feel like, though, too, they probably need to take a very close look at their creative directors also, because they're the ones driving these games. They're the ones in charge of the game design. They're the ones in charge of the visuals. It is the buck stops with you type of position. So if you created a failed game, and not one, but two or three, that's telling me something. But this letter comes after the industry analysis pointed out last week that investors seem very disappointed about the sales of Star Wars Outlaws, with shares dipping 10% in just 2 days. It's gotten worse every day. I don't see it stopping here. I feel like this stock is probably going to hit about 10 euro. At what point do you say, you know what, maybe we do need to step back because this company is just hemorrhaging? Because when your all-time high is what? $102 in 2018. Down to 12 euro. Something's not working. Something is really not working. Well, let's take a look at this open letter. This one is, it's long, chat. But I would love to know your guys' thoughts on this, on like what proposal do you think that they should take? Because AJ Investments is saying that Ubisoft's evaluation and why they believe Ubisoft is a great undervalued company and should be worth between 40 and 45 euro per share. And I actually don't disagree with that. From their all-time high here of like, what, let's just round up, 103, I would say kind of going in the middle and saying it's roughly around 40, 45 is fair. I also think their concerns about the future of this company with the current management is very valid. I think that in general, I don't have faith that Ubisoft can produce a good game anymore. Other than Valhalla, which I did enjoy, it was still formulaic. It was still just Assassin's Creed, do the same things, put skin over top, same mechanics, nothing new, nothing added. But I just shut my brain off and kind of enjoyed it. But I think that Ubisoft has also just done so many missteps with this current management, from X-Defiant to Skull and Bones to Star Wars Outlaws to Division Heartland, you know, and now they want Massive, who flopped with this game. We had a riddled with bugs, who made Division, by the way. I believe they're working on Division 3, which I'm so excited for. But my God, there's a big asterisk next to that of saying like, man, I really hope they don't this up. But with the proposals, right? I personally, I hope the number 2 happens. I hope they have a proxy fight and they gather the other minor investors and they just duke it out. Because I don't feel like the Guillemot family is going to be getting rid of their shares anytime soon. I think that they know that this is their cash cow and that I guarantee they have more money than they ever need, but still, it's about a pride. It's about pride and knowing that you failed. I think this proxy war will happen. The Guillemot family will just be pushed out. I'm curious on the ripple effects because the Guillemot family also has an investment stake in Gameloft and effectively use Gameloft as a proxy for a lot of their mobile games. So this might be a little bit controversial and unfortunately kind of poo-poos on a whole studio's work, but I do feel like Ubisoft Singapore was frankly a waste of government money. They got a massive investment to have the studio there, utilize money to build an ecosystem, and they squandered it for years. And they just drawed it out as long as possible to deliver a mediocre project. I don't understand how that studio still exists. So they also go and talk about the Ubisoft valuation, and we believe that Ubisoft is a great company, developing and distributing and selling video games. Ubisoft has a long-standing history of providing great experiences for all players around the world. Their IPs such as Assassin's Creed, Far Cry, Tom Clancy's, you know, X amount of things, not X-Defiant, Just Dance, Crew, Rayman, others are extraordinary and can attract millions of players over time. And I do agree. I feel like they have a plethora of amazing IPs that they squander. So they also talk about the main reasons why the valuation is so low compared to its peers, that Ubisoft at its current state is mismanaged and shareholders are hostages of the Guillemot family and members of Tencent who take advantage of them. Management is focused on pleasing investors with beating quarterly results and not focusing on long-term strategy to provide exceptional experiences for the gamers. Our company has an extensive knowledge about the gaming industry, and we were long-term shareholders in Activision Blizzard, and we started our Ubisoft position a couple weeks ago and still adding to it. So they're apparently a new investor, and they're just very displeased. As an investment firm, that is their right say I'm not pleased with the current management, and I want to shake this up, and I want to say there's a no confidence vote. But they also say that we cannot understand the decision-making process of the current management that is focused on releasing multiple average games per year that are harming the Ubisoft's reputation. And this is actually a very, very great statement. When we talked about Concord, Sony pulled Concord so fast because it was actually damaging the Sony brand, because it was a first-party title, and Sony is known at releasing bangers for their first-party titles, yet that one just missed the mark so much. But they also say that instead of focusing on providing hit games with exceptional franchises, Division Heartland, which was very much expected to be a game for the gamers, was canceled, and that's because that game was just a skin. It wasn't Division. It was terrible. I played it, and I was so just sickened that they put Division on the name of that. Skull and Bones release was not a success. Prince of Persia Lost Crown was okay. Rainbow Six Siege, I feel like, is probably one of the only games that has probably succeeded for them, and still it's doing all right. Not doing fantastic, it's keeping a steady player base. They also note that the latest release of Star Wars Outlaws is expected to bring good numbers, but recent reviews show the game was not 100% ready for release, despite the fact that the whole world is waiting, salivating for an open world game under the Star Wars franchise. And I don't disagree. I was looking forward to that game so much, but they flopped so hard. I would rather go play Star Wars Galaxies. I feel like Star Wars Galaxies was a better open world game than that. And that's saying something. And we've talked about most of the stuff that they're kind of like covering over here in this article by on TechRaptor, but damn, I really do think this is going to be a wake-up call for Ubisoft. I mean, how many times can you release something this poor and this unappealing when the audience is asking who this was made for, and then continue to operate the way you currently are? And I don't know how many games they currently have in the works right now, but now you have to reevaluate those to make sure that are they actually going to make a profit, or should we just cancel them? Unfortunately, in the gaming industry, that happens. You cancel games because you feel like the market direction, A, the game might have taken too long, or B, it might not hit with the resident audience right now. It might be too early or too late. For example, Concord was way too late. 8 years of development cycle is atrocious. You cannot do that and then hope to have a relevant game, unless your ideas were so groundbreaking that they still hold 8 years later. And I think Ubisoft's current strategy of just copy-pasting the same formula over and over and over again and just putting a new skin on it doesn't work anymore. That's an old way of thinking. So I'm really curious on your guys' thoughts on what's going to happen, but man, I hope they have a proxy war. I hope that they duke this out and wrestle control from Tencent and the Guillemot family, because I think it's honestly time for them to have a change. I really do. I think that they should have a change in this, because frankly, what else is going to happen? This share is going to continue to just plummet in a death spiral. Something needs to change. And sometimes that's you. Sometimes you're the problem. And that's an unfortunate realization I think that the Guillemot family is having right now. But do you guys think it's going to get worse for Ubisoft? I think it is. But I'd love to know your guys' comments on down below. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this, and we'll be following this pretty closely. And I'll see you in the next video.